So when you've created a brand new Google Tag Manager account and container, you'll get a pop-up to install Google Tag Manager. Hey guys, Patrick Simon from 𝗪𝗵𝘁, and welcome to Module 1 of Conversion Tracking Fundamentals for Lead Generation inside of Google Ads. So in this module, we will be covering the basics of Google Tag Manager. So as I mentioned in the introduction video, this whole course is split into 3 different parts. So part 1 will be the basics of Google Tag Manager, like I just mentioned, and then we'll move on to Google Ads conversion tracking for form submissions, and then enhanced conversions for web. So in this module, you will learn why Google Tag Manager is such an important tool when it comes to Google Ads. You will learn how to install Google Tag Manager on a website. And then finally, you will learn the difference between tags, triggers, and variables. So at the end of this module, you should be able to successfully install Google Tag Manager to your website. And then you should also know your way around the user interface for Google Tag Manager itself. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump in. What exactly are the benefits of Google Tag Manager? So Google Tag Manager only needs to be hard-coded onto a website one time. So if you ask a developer to install it on your behalf, they can do that for you. And then once they've deployed Google Tag Manager, you can then deploy whatever tags, triggers, and variables that you need to without having to directly go through a web developer every single time. So once you've installed it, it's kind of out of the way, and you can then have full control over what you deploy into a Google Tag Manager container. Google Tag Manager also keeps everything organized in one place, because Google Tag Manager is basically a container, and inside that container you can put everything that you need to for conversion tracking and other stuff. Anytime you need to reference or adjust conversion tracking or whatever else you put in Google Tag Manager, it's all in a single location. Whereas if you hard-coded everything into a website, it can be a bit tricky to find different pieces of code. Google Tag Manager makes that kind of an easy way to find what you need. And then finally, another benefit of Google Tag Manager is there's an easy way to deploy, test, and debug stuff like conversion tracking. So when you do deploy conversion tracking tags inside of Google Tag Manager, there's a way to debug it and test it to ensure that it actually works before you push it live, which we will go through in this course. Okay, so first things first, let's see how you can actually install Google Tag Manager on your website, and we'll do a walkthrough of that right now. Okay, so I am in Google Tag Manager right now, and the first step we need to do is to create an actual Google Tag Manager account and then create a container within that account. So for this, we'll just give it an example name. We'll just call this YouTube, keep the country as United Kingdom, and then here you can call the container whatever you want. So I'll just call it container. You can call it your website name, it doesn't really matter. And for target platform, we want to select a web container and then click create. Look at the terms and conditions, check the box, and then click yes. Okay, so when you've created a brand new Google Tag Manager account and container, you'll get a pop-up to install Google Tag Manager. So there are 2 snippets of code here that we need to deploy. So first, the first piece of code has to go in the head section of your website, and then the second piece of code needs to go into the body tag of your website. Now, the most important piece of code here is the head code. This has to be deployed to your website. The body code here is just a backup if someone's using like a script blocker, but it isn't necessary to run Google Tag Manager. Most of the time, it's just the head code that needs deploying. But with that said, I would deploy both of them just in case. Okay, so for this example of how to install Google Tag Manager, I'm going to use my WordPress website as the example, and I'm going to install the new account and container onto this platform. Now, obviously, depending on the content management system you use, this might look a bit differently. But if you don't know how to deploy some codes to your header or body section, then I would just do a quick Google search, and you should be able to find the instructions of how to do that. However, if you do use WordPress, then you can copy the exact method that I use and it should work just fine. So for WordPress, I use a plugin called 𝗪𝗵𝘁 𝗀, which is just an easy way or an easy plugin to add and deploy codes to the areas of the website that I need to. Now, if I go into the code snippets plugin here, click on add snippet, and then if I add a custom snippet here, then I go back to the Google Tag Manager tab, and I will first copy the head section code here. So I can just click this icon, which will copy it to my clipboard. Go back to this WordPress tab, paste in the codes here, give the snippet a name. We'll just call this GTM head. Scroll down, and this should be deployed site-wide to the header. And then I can click Save Snippet. Activate it as well, so I'll update that. And then I will add another one. Go back to the Google Tag Manager tab, and then copy the body section code. Paste it in, give it a name. So we'll call this GTM body. Make sure it's active, and then change this drop down here to site-wide body, like that. And then save the snippets. Okay, so now Google Tag Manager should be fully deployed to our website. Now, if I close down this drop down here, you'll see a ID here. So GTM-TR7C2CLP. So your container will have a unique identifier, which you can find here. If you want to see if Google Tag Manager is properly deployed to your website, one way to do that is to go directly to your website and then look at the source codes of the HTML. So I'm on my homepage at the moment, and if I right click and then go to View Page Source, and if I go back to my Google Tag Manager tab, and if I copy this ID here, go back to the source and then do Control F or Command F if you're on Mac. Paste in the GTM ID, you can see that it's finding a piece of HTML code here on my website with the exact identifier here. So this means that Google Tag Manager is deployed, and the code that I copy and pasted from Google Tag Manager is actually correctly on the website and is loading up, which is great. Yeah, that's how you deploy Google Tag Manager on your website. It's super simple and straightforward. And now that we've installed it, we don't need to ever touch this piece of code again. It's pretty much set for life. Okay, so now that Google Tag Manager is correctly deployed on the website, we now need to understand what the differences between tags, triggers, and variables are inside of Google Tag Manager, because these are something that you will run into every single time you deploy conversion tracking or any other tool that Google Tag Manager offers. Okay, so let's first discuss what tags are. So tags are pieces of code that can be executed inside of Google Tag Manager. So for example, Google Ads conversion tag is one of many tags that you can find within the tool. You can create a custom tag yourself, or you can use templated tags like the Google Ads conversion tag. In most cases, you will be using templated tags that have been pre-created, normally by Google or other third parties. And also, or finally, tags cannot be executed without a trigger. So every single tag will have to be accompanied by a trigger. Okay, so what about triggers? So triggers are something that listens on your web page or web pages, and they wait for specific events to fire based on how you've configured a trigger. Now, events can be something like a form submission, a button click, a specific page URL, or a lot of other different things. So for example, if a form is submitted on a specific page of your website, we can have a trigger for that if we want a specific tag to fire. Okay, and finally, variables. So variables are placeholders that are populated with values when code is executed. And variables can be used in both tags and triggers. So a variable on a trigger is a defined set of filters that specify when a tag should be fired. So I might have a trigger that should fire when a URL contains a specific variable value, like my website /thank_you. So the trigger is when a URL contains, and then the variable would be example.com/thank_you in this case. Now a variable on a tag is used to capture dynamic values. So this can be a variety of different things, but one common example might be conversion value or revenue for a specific conversion action. So I might have a Google Ads conversion tag that fires, and I might want to pass the revenue of that specific conversion action of that specific customer back into Google Ads. So I might have a variable for that tag. Okay, so to make things a bit clearer, I've got an actual example of how a tag trigger setup might actually look like with variables. So for Google Ads, we might have a Google Ads conversion tag with a conversion ID variable, which will be the ID of the Google Ads conversion action we're tracking. That might also have a Google Ads conversion label, which is also a variable tied to the Google Ads conversion tag. So every Google Ads conversion action that you deploy inside of Google Tag Manager is always accompanied by a conversion ID variable and a conversion label variable, which we will go into further detail in the next module. And then finally, accompanied with the Google Ads conversion tag is a trigger. So the trigger in this example is a form submission trigger type. So when a form is submitted, so when they click that submit button on the form, the trigger checks if the page path equals /thank_you. And that is the variable that's paired with the trigger. So this is kind of a very basic setup you might see on a lot of Google Ads conversion tags. And it's actually the example we will be using in module 2 when we set up our own Google Ads conversion tracking. Okay, so we will be covering Google Tag Manager more in depth in the next module, but I figured I would show you quickly where the tags, triggers, and variables can be found in the UI. This is the homepage of Google Tag Manager, and on the left-hand side here, you can see a navigation where it has tags, triggers, and variables. So if I click on tags, it will take me into the tag section, and I can create a new tag here. And it will come with a configuration and triggering section. So if I click on tag configuration, I'll get a bunch of different pre-created tag types that we can use. So the Google Ads one is the one that we will be using in the next module. But for now, I'll just exit that. And same for the triggers. This sends us to the trigger section, and we can create a new trigger here. Click on trigger configuration, and we'll get a bunch of options of different trigger types that we can utilize. As you can see, there's one for form submission here, which we will cover in the next module. So exit this. And then finally, the variables section. So the Google Ads account comes with some pre-built-in variables here, like events, hostname, path, URL, page URL, and referrer. And if you click configure on the top right here, you can actually get some additional built-in variables if you need them. So click elements, click classes, click ID, click URL. These are good if you want to track like button clicks, for example. You might want to add these and they'll get added here. But again, for now, I'll leave them unchecked. And then finally, there is a section for user-defined variables if you want to create your own custom ones. So again, if I click on variable configuration, there's a bunch of different types of variables that I can create here, like so. Yeah, that's just a brief look at Google Tag Manager and where you can find the tags, triggers, and variables section. Now there is another section for folders and templates, but we will not be covering these in this course. And in general, you don't really touch these areas anyway. So yeah, we'll leave it for now. And yeah, so that's the end of module 1. Hopefully you found the video informative. And if you are a business looking to get some insights into your own Google Ads accounts, and you maybe want an audit and some feedback on how your account is doing, then please do check out our free marketing plan. You can find it at 𝗪𝗏𝗁𝗀.co.uk, or I will have some links in the description. And yeah, if you watched the whole video and stuck around till the end, thank you very much. Please do drop a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in module 2. Cheers.